At some point down the system, and this system could be a small room, a full building, campus, a country, a disk firm. The point is, at some point, you pull out your video and audio, and you pull out the signatures that were originally created. And at that point, you make the signatures again. And you compare the signature that was made upstream when they were good with the signature you just created. And the result will be the differential timing measurement between what happened back here and what's currently happening here. You can then take the outcome of that measurement, put it on a meter, see if you're early or late, or you can actually automatically adjust audio or video delay to ensure audio and video are in sync. So it's a pretty simple system view. And one of the keys is the technology to do these is super simple. So we're generating several documents. Fingerprint generation and containerization is the nitty-gritty on how we make the fingerprints and how we pack them all up for use. We have a document describing how they're transported over streams. And we picked right now SDI, IP networks, BDP packets over IP, and anti-transport streams. The third aspect is how we bind this stuff to files. Because obviously a file is a stream that's just been frozen. And we're looking at two ways. One is to bind to MXF files, which are SMPTE domain files. And the other is some means of binding it to a generic file type. You have an MOV container, what's inside it? Shouldn't matter. You should be able to bind this stuff, together. The documents 1 and 2 have just been through full committee draft. And we're doing comment resolution. I think we've got about 100 comments on them. And we're working through those. The part 3 work is being drafted right now. Oh, I just said that. So that's what I wanted to talk to you about. I have nothing else on these subjects, and I was happy to throw in AXF. Any questions on any of this stuff? Great.
I'm just wondering the SMPTE position. EBU looking forward has proposed a step to higher frame rates by going to a 100, 120 frame rate at 1080p, essentially. In other words, get the frame rate cranked up to 2 times, then make the step to the, the resolution being bigger. It's interesting, and when you look at the TV sets that have emerged, I don't know whether they can support the higher frame rates. Like, if you buy a 4K today with HDMI 2.0, would it ever be able to support like a higher frame rate, or are you going to have to buy a new TV in the future for that? So I'm kind of looking at the SMPTE EBU view with more frame rates, but then what about the consumer technology? To me, that's one of those things that's just kind of like up in the air.
It is. Frame rates are the hard part. The resolution's not, we've been increasing resolution at the same frame rate forever. Right? Resolution's gone from SD to HD. Yeah, so we actually did address the frame rate in a 2 times thing, because we do have the P60 thing, although we only see it at 720 right now over the air. The higher frame rates really go hand in hand with the higher resolutions, but if you ask an HD sports viewer, they want the higher frame rates for sports at HD res just because, and depending on the viewer you ask, they may want the frame rates, they may want the resolution. The trouble is the two of them together result in ridiculously high bandwidth numbers. I'm not sure there's a clear answer on that. The TV sets will display higher frame rates. Don't forget, internally, these things are sort of flashing the screen at 100 or 120 or higher anyway.
Because they're just doing the interpolation.
Right, so they're just taking low speed input and they're just spinning it up onto the screen. So the resolution's not a problem, and the internal guts there is not a problem. It's that big question mark missing piece in the middle. And it looks like resolution is going to come before frame rates, but that's just a guess. Because people want bigger screens. Smoother picture, well, they fake that right now. So the higher frame rates is less important than resolution, which you can't fake as well. That's just my opinion. Reed.
How about HDR? High dynamic range?
Well, yeah, HDR goes hand in hand with the expanded color space. And you
more
need
bits, right?
Well, you need more bits, or you need the right transfer function, and that's the electro-optical transfer function. Perception thing is being worked on to understand that better. How do we get the best mileage out of our bits? We waste a ton of bits in television right now We use an inappropriate number of bits up at white, and we use not enough bits down near black. And if you're ever watching TV and you see dark scenes and you see shading, that's because we don't have very many numbers for black and we have too many for white. And well, that's just an evolutionary thing related to gamma. So we may find in the EOTF discussions that we actually discover something that we can put the bits we have to better use. But HDR, along with the wide gamut, it's the same problem. And the screens are going to come. This is another aspect, right? The screens will come that will display it. And people will then demand pictures that light it up. Unfortunately, what will happen is what's always happened in TV, and that is if the mother-in-law likes the brighter faces, she'll turn up the chroma, and she'll have HDR on her screen because she likes the high chroma.
Showroom setting.
Sorry?
Showroom setting.
That showroom button is right. So that was it. Thank you all very much, and I'm back to Lee.
Hello, a long night. I guess any last questions before we wrap up? Yes, sir.
Yeah, digital cinema. I mean, it's 4K, so let's just round it down to the 3840. And they're running a 250 megabit off their servers. Can you see doing that over broadcast?
Compressed how?
JPEG 2000. 28 to 1 at 4K. And it's virtually imperceptible difference between the original and the 28 to 1 at 4K with JPEG 2000. The nice thing about that is if you compress with one of the DCT things like MPEG or JPEG, you get the blocking artifact. If you compress with JPEG 2000 and you over-compress it, it looks like film grain. It looks like noise randomly distributed throughout the image, so there's no blocking. So the film guys just freak out because they say, oh, gee, that's film grain I'm looking at on YouTube, and it just passes as being acceptable. But at 28 to 1 or 250 megabit for a 4K 12-bit stream, then there's no perceptible film grain as you can see.
Right.
They get away with it at 28 to 1.
So that's a distribution chain situation, because they don't edit at 250 megabits. That's for final release.
You'd be surprised what they do.
Yeah, but everybody does, yeah, okay, but everybody's DI right now works full band. Anybody does full band with DI, right? I mean, even amateurs do full band with DI and their Macs and so on. So that's an endpoint 250 megabits. So compare that, however, with the need to get, well, I mean, let's say we have 18 megabits of a 19.3 ATSC stream available. We got 18 megabits if you want to go 4K over the air. So your 250 is interesting, but for over the air we need a lot less. Now in a production facility that could wash, except for people again doing high-end production who want to do it in more bits. The other problem with JPEG 2K is the cost. It's a pricey encoder, it's a pricey decoder. So if you had to have that on every port of every device, that might not be a very, very attractive solution, as opposed to a slightly, lighter mezzanine compression, maybe 10 or 12 to 1, to get you down inside regular SDI speeds. But that could be a solution. I mean, JPEG 2K is under discussion as being one possibility, because it doesn't look integrate so well.
I'd like to thank everyone. If you have any more questions, sort of come down to the front, and Paul, Allen, and I will be here for a couple more minutes. Just a reminder, there's the SMPTE Engineering Committee meetings in March if you want to go down to Niagara Lake. And if that doesn't excite you, you want to learn a bit more, we've got the boot camp in June there, so the registration will be opening for that soon. And if you have any papers you want to submit, don't forget to get those papers in. And I think Paul said you have to go home tonight and find one person to sign up to SMPTE, so that's your action for tonight, is to find one person to sign up. Anyway, thank you everyone.
Do you have actual dates for the boot camp?
The boot camp dates are June 11th and 12th. Thank you everyone.